Berserk 2016 is the most visually offensive thing I've ever had the misfortune of looking at. It's so bad, even ISIS wouldn't claim responsibility for it. But don't worry, I'm going to break it down piece by piece in this in-depth analysis at why this anime is fucking garbage. We'll start this off with the key and most important point for everyone to understand. Everything is wrong. Well, let's set the clocks back a little bit and look at before the show actually came out. The first few red lights that were going on in my head was when I saw the first teaser trailer. I went, oh, that kind of looks like shit. Some of it looked good, you know, the stuff that wasn't CG, and then I heard the sword sounds. And it sounded like an assortment of banging pots and pans together, and then I started to worry. Then they announced the team who was animating it, and I saw the director and didn't recognize his name. That's okay though. I don't usually recognize most animator director names unless I really like them, like Gen Urobuchi or Shinichiro Watanabe. So I decided to have a look-see at what Mr. Shin Itagaki had worked on previously. Oh, he did some key animations for Inuyasha, he was a director for some Loop in the Third episodes, he did storyboarding and directing for some episodes of Panty and Stocking. I mean, who doesn't love Panty and Stocking? What are you, a fucking loser? Oh, well, let's keep moving. He did some Gurren Lagann episode direction and storyboarding. Gurren Lagann, one of the greatest artistic achievements made by man. That means we must be in good hands, right? Right? But then you get to his latest work, and the most recent thing he's worked on is TQ? Okay, that's a little odd. Maybe it was just for a paycheck or something, but then you keep scrolling and you see he did all 9 seasons of it. Oh. Okay. Worst yet, that they decided that it was a great idea to let an animation studio whose previous work was only TQ to work on this. For those unaware, TQ's an anime about cute little girls playing tennis, and it kinda looks like shit, but a lot of its charm comes from looking like shit. I feel like that's not a good choice when you're picking someone to make a highly detailed anime. Why not get Studio Bones, or Madhouse, or anyone other than this? Was this really all you had? Probably the biggest alarm going off in my head is that Mr. Itagaki has no experience with 3D animation. Why would you get someone to direct something made in 3D animation when they have no prior experience? Another thing, when reading an interview with the show's producer, it said that they were doing storyboards in 2D and then choosing if they wanted scenes to be in full CG, traditional 2D animation, or hybrid of the both. This sounds like a huge clusterfuck and waste of time. And sure enough, it was. It was also stated in this same interview the director of the 2D and the 3D studios would meet and discuss what they were going to use depending on what they were trying to achieve for each scene. What I gather from this information is that all 3 parties are trying to achieve the same thing but doing it separately. So they're essentially working against each other, leading to more issues down the line, causing more clusterfucks, and especially when this is on such a constrained time schedule, giving us this shit stain of a product we have in front of us now that I am bitching about in this 30-minute long video. It is also very clear to me that they have zero budget whatsoever. I guess Miura used up all of his savings for the anime on Idolmaster. Thanks, Idolmaster. You ruined another thing I loved. Good job. But enough of the depressing monotone narration. Time to move on to the heated ranting that everyone loves watching these videos for. It doesn't take Sir Roger Ebert to explain to you that this looks like fucking garbage. What happened here? Who okayed this? How could anyone let this happen to Berserk? Berserk, one of the most influential things to come out of fucking Japan next to JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and hentai. Look at JoJo. Araki's sitting in his fucking house made of money laughing while the money prints itself from each release of the new JoJo season. And then we see Miura over here fucking picking up table scraps when he remembers that he has to eat after sitting through a 20-hour session of Idolmaster. No, Kotaku, it is not some damn good anime worthy where your tongue is to be scraped off the floor with a spatula. I quote, "There wasn't any sexual violence in this episode. One of Berserk 1997's first scenes featured a girl openly harassed at a tavern, forced to lick spilled wine off a table. Guts predictably saves her. It's dull. Perhaps this series' writers have caught up with the times." Caught up with the times. If only she knew the horrors to come. Honestly, I can make an entire video about how wrong this article is, but that's something for another time. I guess I should get this out of the way now, but it's pretty obvious that yes, the animation is terrible. Everyone and their fucking dog has talked about it. I'm going to talk about it as much as I can throughout this video, but I'm trying to make it seem not repetitive compared to what everyone else has put out so far. A lot of this is going to be me comparing scenes from the anime to its manga panel counterparts. Just to give you an idea of the clusterfuck and disservice we are getting with this product compared compared to the amazing greatness of the original. I'll also be mentioning when each episode starts, the amount of chapters it's covering to give an idea of how much they have to compress in a single 22-minute anime episode. The intro song is also generic anime drivel that completely misses the tone of what Berserk is actually about, and I feel like if someone just watched this intro knowing nothing about Berserk would give them a false pretense of what the show is like. Not to mention it also looks like utter shit for most of it. I guess at this point I should just accept the fact that we're never going to get a Lost Children's arc, which is in fact my favorite arc of the entire manga. It annoys and saddens me to know that my favorite part of the entire series is just not going to get the animated justice it actually deserves. But I guess I should be happy that my favorite part is spared from the travesty that is Berserk 2016. Now that we got all the exterior bullshit out of the way, we can actually talk about the episodes themselves. Episode 1 covers the prologue of chapters 0A, 0B, along with chapters 95, 96, and 119. So essentially it's trying to merge two arcs together, that being the Black Swordsman arc when we're first introduced to Guts himself at the beginning of the manga, and the Conviction arc which comes right after the Lost Children's arc, which is cut from the show, along with the other prologue chapters and all the plots within it, considering there is prologue chapters 0C through 0P that are completely cut from the anime. I'll be going over the cut plot points as they come up throughout the story. So right off the bat, the first one that was cut from the anime was Guts killing the female apostle. At first this may not seem important, but this is the same female apostle that killed Corcus and other members of the Band of the Hawk during the eclipse. So since we're merging these two separate arcs which have vast chapter distances between each other, there is going to be a lot of things that are told out of order. Like right off the bat, when you first see Guts enter the bar, Isidro can also be seen in this bar except for the fact that he isn't introduced until chapter 133 in the manga. They also introduce Shirik in this episode even though she isn't introduced in the manga until chapter 184. Guys, there's really no time. We have to introduce everybody right now in the first episode. Fuck plot progression at all. With all this shaky cam, you'd think I'd be watching a found footage movie and not an anime. What's the point of all these angled shots like the upside down pan of Guts walking into the bar? What is this supposed to establish? This is just incoherent mess. In the bar scene, Guts just knocks them out and fights the bandits, but in the manga, he actually kills them, and since the whole Slug Baron subplot from the prologue is cut, he doesn't interrogate one of them and then has this cool shot where he cuts them in half. Oh hey, we're already starting to reuse assets like the guy at the entrance of the bar and then the asshole who swung the sword at him. What the fuck is that white shimmer supposed to be right here? There's nothing like this in the manga, so I have no idea what they're trying to show here. With the whole Snake Baron plot being cut, it also cuts a lot of the interactions between Guts and Puck. And I feel this is where they show a lot of Guts' character and they establish him as a person. Also, they establish why he keeps Puck around, like the fact that he heals Guts and that's the only reason he does. From what you can tell from this, it's just Puck is an annoying little asshole that follows Guts around that he can't stand, and then Guts yells at him but never actually acts upon making him go away more than just yelling a few times. Since they decided to leave the bandits in the bar alive and they are cutting the Lost Children's arc, they decided to introduce the cursed tree here and then kill them off so we don't actually have to worry about them again and we will soon forget their existence. But hey, with this we get a funny image to laugh at how terrible the show looks. Honestly, some of the actual drawn scenes in the show don't look all that terrible. For some reason they thought it was a great idea to just start connecting every small little plot point for no apparent reason, like how the old man was at the bar in the beginning in the anime but he never was in the manga, and for some reason they just thought, hey, let's tie this all together. There are a lot of minor dialogue changes, especially surrounding Guts, like when he's talking to the old man about his dead son. He says that the son was lucky to have died doing what he wanted instead of I bet he was happy, changing Guts' outlook on life being more philosophical instead it just comes off more edgy. He's lucky to die. Like come on, the show may be dark and gruesome, but it's not fucking edgy. Even though this is supposed to be a continuation of the movies, they keep flashing back to it like we've never seen it before. Like during Guts' nightmares, they add scenes from the eclipse. Of course not scenes from the movie, mind you, because that would actually look good and it'd be jarring because those scenes are actually well animated. This is just really shitty redraws. That was the most flaccid scream of Griffith I've ever heard. And people say the Japanese versions are always better. Man, these scenes are supposed to be super dramatic and impactful, but everyone's lifeless expression really takes away from it. Like it's completely distracting. I can't ignore it. If they had Guts swinging his sword animated for the trailer, why not just use that in the anime itself instead of using a 3D model? That seems like more work. Also, it looks infinitely worse. This has been said a million times already, but fucking hell does the Dragon Slayer sound awful. It's like two fucking pans thrown down a metal stairwell, added some reverb to it. If you honestly couldn't come up with a cool sword sound, then just use some fucking royalty-free sound effects. Jesus fucking Christ, anything is better than this. This scene is supposed to be really shocking and show the weakness of Guts' character, that he isn't as tough and as heartless as he tries to portray himself, but it's completely ruined by the shitty panning and Colette going, "Nothing personal, kid," along with the terrible sword effects and the downright terrible angles of these shots. This is honestly how I feel about the show. So episode 2 starts, and this covers chapters 119 through 122. Now that they're in daylight, you get to see how terrible the characters are in all of their glory. Because in the first episode, since it was mostly dark, it kind of masked somewhat how shitty they look, but nope, in pure daylight you get to see how terrible they are in all their extremely awkward movement. With the Lost Children arc's removal, now Guts runs into Farnese right after fighting these skeletons, instead of fighting the Apostles and her minions, which would leave him far more wounded and would make sense why he's too weak to fight them. Also, it doesn't really make sense why they're after him at this point, since he hasn't really done anything too bad yet. Like, one of the main reasons they're after him because they thought he was a fucking child murderer. A sword doesn't make that sound when you just grab it. Once again, the show censors Guts killing more of the guards and instead just hurts them by punching them.
Hey, but Alex, it's not really that important, really. It's just some
Yeah, guys, who needs artistic integrity? Who needs to actually adapt something well when you can just pump out drivel and idiots will eat it up? What is with this rewind-like sound in the music? It's super distracting while they're fighting. Like, these faces are so lifeless, they don't convey anything from these characters. It is so static and boring. Like, look at this fucking comparison. Even more flashbacks added in of the Golden Age arc, even though this is supposed to be a continuation of it. Instead of actually showing any action or what's happening on the screen, we're just going to leave a close-up of Guts' face and sword sounds in the background to give you an idea of what's going on. I can't get over how terrible this transition in this scene really is. I had to mention it. Like, why would you pan this way? It's so visually ugly. Wait a second, this scene doesn't look like utter shit. Am I watching the Blu-rays? What's going on here? Why are all of Guts' whip marks magically healed in the next shot when he's walking out of the tent? Did they forget to re-add them to his 3D model? Oh look, more interactions between Puck and Guts are cut from the anime, because who needs characterization, right? They're friends, guys. If the show keeps telling us they're friends, we're gonna believe it, right? Right? Honestly, the best looking shot of the entire episode is the Stinger still image at the end. So, episode 3 covers chapters 123 through 127, and apparently Miura actually directed this episode, so maybe we're in good hands this time. Let's see how well he can transition from drawing an amazing detailed manga to actually fluid motion. Why is the sword making clang sounds when he's swinging through spirits? Aren't they supposed to be ethereal? Another visually interesting scene ruined by shitty animation. So they changed the whole location of the chase scene, so they are now in the abandoned mansion instead of the canyon. The nasty little wretch apostle from chapter 93 was given an entire backstory, but hey, we had to cut other stuff like the Baron subplots, both of them, the snake and the slug one, but we had enough time to fit this in. Glad to see that Rape Horse got the animated quality he so rightfully deserved. Oh my god, this is just embarrassing. This editing is also just fucking atrocious. Like, there's so many jump cuts, and anytime that they actually have a nice shot or a nice scene happening, they instantly cut away from it. It's somewhat reminiscent about how high budget Hollywood action movies are now, where they instantly cut right before the impact of a fight scene because they're not actually fighting, it's just simulated combat instead of a well choreographed fight scene like something like Raid Redemption. In this episode, there's definitely a noticeable lack of excessive panning, which is nice in scenes because not every scene has to pan, guys. Just because it is made in CG and you have more freedom with your camera doesn't mean you need to spin around everybody and fucking confuse everyone. It's so disorienting. Like, spatial awareness in scenes is so confusing. Like, where is anybody in the shot of the bar fight? Less is more. Like, you don't need to be like, look at what we can do, because it just ends up ruining it more. Oh, hell yeah. Nothing's hotter than two statues grinding against each other. Cut from the anime is where General Laban goes through the plague-infested city. Also, instead of General Owen going through the palace and going to the princess's room, it is General Laban. Guess they were short on budget this week, so they didn't have enough to make an actual second character model for a new character that they're going to use for 5 scenes in total. I must say this episode definitely did flow a lot better compared to the previous 2, but that doesn't mean it's still good. It is still a rancid pile of shit. So now that we've fully entered the conviction arc, we no longer has vast chapter distances mashed into one episode, creating somewhat of a confusion. So there's about only one more episode that actually has 2 separate chapters mashed into one. It's about
are 4 chapters apart, and they just rearrange the scenes, and at the end of the day, it still serves the same purpose and doesn't really make anything more confusing. It maybe just could have flowed a little bit better if they left it originally how it was. So episode 4 covers chapters 128 through 132. Right off the bat, they cut out the fight between Zod and Griffith, which shows why Zod aligns with Griffith instead of staying neutral like he was in the beginning of the manga. There you go, that one quick image overlaid for about 10 seconds is the extent of the backstory we're going to get about how Guts got the Dragon Slayer. I know it's really unreasonable for me to expect them to live up to the quality of the drawings of Hell during the eclipse, but this shit is just downright terrible. The demon designs are just way too complex for the shitty quality of anime here. It must really be their goal to try to cut every character developing moment in dialogue, like when Puck and Rickard are talking about Guts as a person, and how while the years change, Guts is still the same person at the end of the day, and he still really cares for Casca. But nope, you just gotta have him run around go, Casca, Casca. That shows that he really cares about her. Right guys, fuck character development, that's just boring. They also cut Farnese talking to the council and more of her inner monologue about her losing faith, and they decided it was enough to just show that she was almost raped by a horse. Alright, let's see what's not important. Character development, backstories that actually matter, character motivation, that's certainly not important. Fuck that, that's just taking up time. We gotta fit in several more panning shots of the same shit over and over again because we actually have no movement at all in our characters, and people will actually realize they're looking at a slideshow and not an anime. They changed the young person who was about to be executed to an old man. I guess they just had to reuse assets. What the fuck is this camera? Are you trying to give me a fucking migraine? The lighting is so shit here that they could fuck up even the easiest of scenes just because they threw everything into the 3D software and were like, fuck it, that's good enough. Since they're using 3D to make this show, a lot of the potential impact from fight scenes is lost because like in traditional 2D animation, you could have smears and other line work to make it look like there's impact. You can't do that with 3D unless you're someone like Arxis who can actually do smear animations with 3D models. But do you really expect someone who does this to be able to do this? I don't think so. Just look at Guts' face right here. You can see that there's infinite more motion and impact because this is drawn and they have the creative freedom to add depth and shadows, which they can't really do with 3D models unless they want to have this fucking scratchy shit overlay. Like they look like they're using fucking color 20 from Street Fighter 4. It looks terrible. Why is the scratchy texture that's over every single character actually move with them? It looks like they're in a fucking Chowder episode. I guess since I've been railing on 3D animation this whole time, I should preface this by saying that I don't particularly hate it. If I had the option, I'd much rather have a 2D animation, but 3D animation can be done right. Just look at Garo or any of the 3 first JoJo openings. Like those are all amazing and great and also 3D and don't look like shit. Like this just gets so frustrating when you can see good scenes like this right here, which isn't CG and doesn't look like utter dog shit, but then it's just hampered down with all the awfulness around it. Like I feel so bad for people who have to claim they're like, yeah, I drew this. While the drawn scenes do look infinitely better than the CG, they still are pretty bad because every time they do it, it's just shot, reverse shot, and only their mouths move and their bodies are completely frozen and stilted because it's not animation at all. You draw the body once and then you just have 3 frames of the mouth open, mouth semi-closed, and then mouth fully closed, and bam. And if they don't do that, it's just a panning close-up of a drawing. It's also incredibly jarring when they have CG characters and drawn characters in the same shot. It's even worse when they're interacting with each other. I just noticed, but has there been a scene where Guts' cape is not flowing in the wind? I don't understand why they would texture all the demons and spirits with this ugly, rough texture. It really conflicts with the smooth look of other characters they're trying to go for. It's honestly an aesthetic nightmare. It makes it look shittier than it actually is. Oh my fucking god, they can't even get fog right! Why are they painting Skull Knight's and Guts' face while you can see both of them standing there lifelessly in the same shot? Every visually interesting thing they could possibly do is ruined by their utter incompetence. But you know, maybe that just Berserk can't be animated. There's an entire video on this that you can go watch, the link will be in the description below. But like they stated in this video, that it's just so picturesque that there's so much painstaking detail in each panel of the manga that you can't possibly have this transition to anime. Unless you want to be like Redline and then take, 7 years to make and then be a commercial failure even though you were a critical success. Oh great, now we get to watch them ruin Mosgus too. Probably one of the strongest villains next to Griffith, and being memorable and having understandable motives that even maybe you can get behind or understand why he thinks that way. Someone you truly hate for the detestable things he does against humanity and his utter hypocrisy. But hey, fuck all that, we're just gonna cut everything memorable about him. He's just some asshole with a book.
この10年、一日も欠かしたことはありません。
What is this kidding! Who okays this?
Back to the topic of more cut content. The story that Mozgus told Farnies while she was airing her concerns and worries of what they were doing was actually right is completely removed from the anime. Understandably, a lot of the graphic images from the orgy ritual are removed because this is aired on TV. Sadly, a lot of the cool visual trickery from the hallucinations were also lost due to this censorship. It's so touching to see such a motherly role taken up by Luca for her band of prostitutes. It almost brings a tear to my eye. The only thing that's stopping me is how fucking robotic they look. Like, at least draw some fucking wrinkles on their face, like, goddamn, that's at least better than this. This sequence is so shitty that all the faces are actually melted together if you freeze frame this. It's not like where it's a smear animation to make the illusion of motion that people post in quality anime threads. It's just noticeably bad. I'm seriously getting a fucking migraine from all this shaky cam, god damn it. It's like taking me an entire week to watch 12 fucking episodes because I get so sick from looking at this. Wow, when it's drawn and not CG, you can actually see facial expressions on characters. What a novel concept. I do have to admit that there is a noticeable improvement in quality in episode 7, but then again, that's not really saying much. Every ghoul is actually the same character model. Look at this. Nice, more censorship, just what I need in my hyper gore anime. Yeah guys, this is a great idea. Just have them pan around his body when he's on a cliff. Just have the camera go directly into the rock. What could possibly go wrong? It definitely doesn't look terrible at all. Also at the end here, you can see the rock actually warp around Serpico. At this point, I'm starting to think that the show creators are just trolling us and seeing what else they can get away with. The pacing is just so off with these episodes. Why wouldn't you just cut it here once they have Casca taken away by the soldiers instead of having it meander for another 3 minutes? Like, this is where the chapter ends in the manga. Why not just have it cut here and then continue in the next episode? Wouldn't that make more sense and flow better? Are those sesame seeds? I'm being tortured just as bad as these people in this scene by looking at it. I'm really starting to think that they're just having all this panning to mask the fact that there is literally no motion at all. These are just still images I'm looking at. It's super jarring that the goo is moving at 6 frames while everyone is at least moving at 12. This has to be the most bland, flat fight that I've seen yet. Guts is practically T-posing right now. Man, you really get to see how shit Skull Knight looks with all that JPEG fire around him. His fucking armor looks like it has a tinfoil texture around it. Sick. Frame the shot just so you can't see any gore from the cannon. I love it. Why would I ever want to see anything that's actually going on in the scene? That's just silly. If the end of the staff has spikes on both end of it, then in this shot, then the one side should be completely in Guts' neck since the hilt is clipping into him, and the other side isn't around his neck at all. What is that derpy looking expression on Guts' face supposed to be? In the manga, he doesn't have any expression at all. He's just blank faced. Honestly, if you're going to have 3D and drawn characters in the same shot, just say fuck it and have them all 3D, because it stands out too much when they're not both the same thing. You honestly could just cut away from this scene instead of going straight to black and ruining the flow of it. Like, watch this. Bam, and I instantly improved it. Look, that flows way better. Hey Zod, where'd you get that scar on your head? And why is your horn missing? We'd probably know this if they didn't cut that from the anime. Oh. Where is the ground for this shot? Were they so rushed that they couldn't even drag and drop something in? Do these guys have any understanding of how to frame or distance anything in this anime at all? You can really see where the studio's strengths lie when they're doing the chibi moe blob gag stuff, because that doesn't look like complete shit and it actually flows pretty well. It's almost as if all they've ever worked on is fast-paced, high-energy anime with a messy art style to complement the comedy, and have no place making a dark, depressing, slow, and somber show. But that's just my opinion. Man, it'd be really nice if we could get to see the action of Guts beating Mozgus, but they have him framed outside of the shot, not to mention he's spewing so much jelly it's even harder to see what's happening on the screen.
Eyes open with your hands to ensure water reaches the eyes.
Wow. They used 5 character models this time. I honestly think that Guts was miscasted for this anime. This guy does a serviceable job, mind you. He's okay, but I don't think he has what it takes to do the guttural screams of pure anger that is required for this character. I also don't believe a lot of the times when he is trying to sound like he's in pain or he's swinging his sword. A lot of the lines come off stilted in a way, but that's just my perception. I can't 100% say for sure because I don't understand Japanese. So just based on inflections, this is just how I feel. Maybe have him do 1 or 2 more takes of him screaming at Griffith, because boy, do I not feel anything from that. Sick. More unnecessary Shira conclusion. Yes, this is just what we need. It ties everything together perfectly. Oh my god, what did you do to Zod? He looks like a chia pet. Wait a second. Skull Knight wasn't holding his sword here. What? They're playing metal over this? Take a deep breath, just calm down, it's not that big of a deal. It's okay, they are completely incompetent, we know this, we understand. No one knows how to tell a story on this team, no one knows how to frame a scene on this team, no one knows how to use correct music for a scene, no one understands tone at all. It is okay, it is okay. But on a serious note, why did they think it was a good idea to cut character development, characterization, and so on? Do they really expect me to get attached to these characters when they're all so robotic and lifeless? But you know what character got the worst treatment in the show? Guts. And that's a big fucking problem when that's the main character of your show. Literally every instance, and I've been going over this for the whole fucking video, so this is probably pretty redundant at this point. Every instance they have at characterization and telling his background and his motivation, it just completely cut. From what you can tell from watching this is Guts is just an asshole who just kills people and doesn't give a shit about anything. But in actuality, Guts regrets most of his actions. He hates what he has to do. He hates the life he has to live. He's a product of the misfortune of his upbringing. Orphaned at birth from his mother being killed and hung from a tree, miraculously being born, only to be rescued by a passing caravan mercenaries, being taken in by a prostitute that's part of the gang, only to witness this now foster mother die to the plague and have his foster father, the mercenary leader, blame him for this. Growing up on the battlefield, knowing survival of the fittest is the only way you're going to make this out. It's kill or be killed. The only thing he knows what to do is fight. His abusive foster father, later selling him off to one of the other members of the mercenary group and being raped by him. Later then killing his rapist during a mission, and his now alcoholic disabled father trying to kill him. He ends up killing him in self-defense. The rest of the mercenaries then blame him for the death of their leader and chase him off trying to kill him. After this, he is completely shut off from all interaction of other people and does not let anyone else even touch him. Later to find acceptance in the Band of the Hawk, making a best friend out of Griffith and 11 Casca. Later to leave and to go his own separate way and basically fucking everything up. To come back to find things are changed for the worse. Griffith's lost his body pretty much. He is a husk of who he formerly was. And then losing everybody to the eclipse, where Griffith then sacrifices everybody to get a new body and ascend to the God Hand, along with, gouging his eye out and raping Casca in front of him, and then leaving Casca as an empty shell of who she formerly was. Now he is left marked with the brand of the sacrifice, which will then leave him to be chased by demons and otherworldly spirits until they take his soul and drag him to hell and suffer for the rest of eternity. But after hearing me say that, would you have gotten any of that from the anime? Fuck no. And that's the anime's biggest issue. We can complain to the end of time about the shitty animation, the hit or miss voice acting, the complete misuse of the music, and the all over the place tone, but this is just terrible storytelling. You can see Mira's brilliance still shine through in this sometimes, but it's just hampered down because it is, at the end of the day, a bad adaptation. But now it's done and over with. I never have to talk about this fucking piece of shit ever again, and hopefully it won't get any sequels. Wait, what? There's another season? You're shitting me. There's no fucking way. No!